That sector needs to adjust. You saw the opening of a new shaft at Chambishi a couple of weeks ago, and a very inspiring speech from the president there. That is because the old shaft, they've depleted what is available at that depth, and now to find new copper ore on the copper belt, you have to go deep. So to extend the lives of these mines, we need to make significant investments. Open pits like Nchanga are the type and way of the future in the northwestern province, where there is great opportunity for growth in there as well. We then have the metallurgical processing business, which is where mines like Lumwana sell their ore to mines like KCM, Mopani, and Chambishi, and they then get their copper out of the ore they have bought. They also take in ore from the DRC. Now, presently, we have a challenge as an industry, because when you import ore from the DRC, we have to pay VAT on the imports. And the VAT refunds don't come back in good time. And the margins in that business are understandably low, because what we're importing from the DRC is not just raw ore, it's concentrate. So it has been part processed and is a bit more expensive than what you dig out of the ground. So the margins are not that great. And if the VAT is not refunded, as it is held, our margin, our effective profit margin, is also sitting and being held. So over time, you shrink your working capital. And so it's a business our members are not exploiting in full, simply because they need to maintain their cash positions and do things which are higher margin. If we are just allowed to defer VAT and pay it on sales, then that will enable us to take a bigger proportion of what is coming out of the DRC. Presently, 500,000 tons of concentrate is crossing this country every year, which should be coming out of this country as 125,000 tons of cathode because of this VAT impediment. So we would like this as a first step. Related to this, but not part of the stimulus package, is a historical situation where there are VAT refunds that are owing, going back to 2015 when there was Rule 18 and there were some issues about how it was operationalized. This set of refunds and worth about 400 million US dollars, or 4 billion kwacha. The ZRA has been disputing the claim that this money is fundable, and we hope we can get a resolution on this quite soon. And an additional 2 billion kwacha, about $200 million, is still being held by the ZRA simply because of, I think, what we would consider administrative challenges. If these refunds can be resolved, then the working capital position of the industry will be significantly improved. Right now, if you look at the time that these VAT liabilities occurred, over time, while they have been held by the ZRA, they've basically depleted the industry's working capital by $1 billion. Because presently, what we are owed, if you look at our exchange rate, is 600 million US as an industry. And we've taken a $300 million exchange loss hit in terms of working capital. So if this can be done for the industry, there is the ability to ramp up imports of concentrate for toll treatment, and to also look at present operations, shaft redeepening on the copper belt, and open pit expansion in the new fields. To give you an idea of the challenge in northwestern province, Kansanshi mine is beginning to experience a lower grade of ore and requires 1.5 billion US dollars to expand and be able to increase its throughput to maintain production levels. With an unstable royalty regime, it is, as I mentioned, very difficult for one to convince one's shareholders as a listed company to make an investment in a jurisdiction that is not stable. And you will be vetoed at the shareholder level. That is one associated change we would like to see. If that working capital issue can be redressed, we are in a position to improve our operations where they are. There is some very, very groundbreaking work being done in the industry, places like Rwansha, where old shafts are being brought into production by innovatively cross-subsidy with the piles of dumps that were there previously, to bring them back to life. And if a good dispensation can be found on this front, we can use what we have to increase production levels. Remember, we have $1.2 million of cathode production, 1.2 million tons of cathode production capacity that we are only utilizing 50% presently. So the infrastructure is there for us to actually grow. The other changes that we require, aside from the carry forward losses, is an adjustment of capital allowances. Certain costs that are not allowed, especially associated with shaft sinking, which goes counter to the situation, because we need to deepen those shafts and sink new shafts on the copper toll. So we need those provisions adjusted, and presently capital allowances are limited to a proportion of your profitability in terms of what you can claim as our carry forward losses. We need these restrictions removed, because all they do is push forward the break-even date for a mine. And the faster a mine breaks even, the faster the revenues from there can begin to be applied to increasing the production and also seeking out additional reserves. Presently, as I've said, the industry is not spending anything on finding new reserves, and we are at 20 million tons, which is 20 years. There is a desperate need to bring forward these break-even times so that we can begin to apportion a share of spend to this long-term investment. There is also a need to allow expenditure on corporate social responsibility to be fully tax deductible. We understand the high expectations of the communities in which mines operate and where they are being formed. Even on the copper belt, there are still very, very big challenges in a lot of areas. And doing this simply makes the operating environment for a mine better, and it also enables the mining industry to contribute towards the long-term sustainability of those communities, even after the mine's life. The mine comes to the end of its planned life. The final proposals that we have are very closely tied to the exploration need. We are proposing that the Income Tax Act be amended to allow investments into exploration activities by companies in the Republic of Zambia to be tax deductible. This is perceived to be a very, very risky activity, and by allowing pension funds and the like to make these claims, it partially de-risks the investment and is actually the primary means by which 72% of exploration capital is raised in Australia and Canada, which are the main centers for this kind of activity. We are proposing this for the Republic of Zambia because it is a means by which our local financial sector can put its best foot forward, address the potential risk of a future without mining in 20 years' time. It may seem to be a high-risk investment, but I think the risk of Zambia without a mining industry is one that they ought to address in advance of the occurrence. And generally, if local institutions have taken the step of taking the first initial de-risking steps on a mining project, it instills confidence, and then you will be able to get additional capital coming in from the international markets. So this is the last of the really industry-specific proposals that we have as a chamber. The final opportunity that we would like government to address is to do with the mix of the endowment that we have. Presently, the price outlook that is the medium-term and long-term positive price outlook is due to two things. Worldwide copper grades are falling, and not enough mines are coming online. So the price of copper is set to rise, partially because of OECD infrastructure investment demand, but also to a very large extent due to the growing switch of the vehicle mix worldwide to electric vehicles. This demand is growing at 45% per annum on a compound basis. It's exponential. And it is going to add significant amounts of demand and create a deficit situation from around 2022, 2023 going forward. We are fortunate that we have copper, which is one beneficiary of this demand. Maviza is just beginning production of nickel in the last quarter, which is another mineral which is to benefit from this sort of demand. And manganese in Luapula is another beneficiary of the demand coming from this area. Exploration potential within the country even indicates minerals like tin, which have potential because of their electronic applications, are there. And we would actually suggest to government that they reinstate some of the investment incentives that were available to investors with regard to 50% tax rate to break even, and the other exemptions that were available under the ZDA Act, specifically to investors in the electric vehicle battery mineral supply chain or value chain, because we know that more often than not, the manufacturers of these batteries and minerals make investments further upstream into the mining sector. We've seen this in the DRC. China Molybdenum has taken over Tenke Fungurume, and we have other battery manufacturers that are opening mines in the DRC and in conjunction with the experienced mining companies. And we think it would be folly for us not to create a circumstance that would incentivize them to come and do so here, and probably even add value here.